Hey guys, new video for Path of Exile. So in this video we're going to go over a Marauder or Juggernaut Armor Stacker build idea I had. So I wanted to see how, you would build a Juggernaut, and it's kind of what I came up with after like 2 days of playing around in PoB. I probably spent way too much time in PoB doing this, but the results were pretty good, so I decided to make a build sort of video about it. Anyways, so let's get into it. So this build is a life-based Juggernaut. We get to use March of the Legion with Eldritch Battery, so we still get to have, really high-level Grace Aura that a lot of, let's say like if you're playing an ES build, you can't really do this, right? Armor value is pretty good. This build isn't actually even using a Mage Blood either. A lot of the items are quite cheap. The rare items are, I've put like max T1 like affixes on them, but so yeah, the stats might be a little bit inflated, but at the same time, we're getting new bases. Life rolls are getting higher, so I think it's okay, right, to do that. I guess, yeah, let's get into it, right? All right, so let's first take a look at some of the stats of the build, rundown. Hit chance, kind of sad. Anyways, you could probably get it higher. DPS, this time I'm doing it with Lightning Strike. There is sort of a reason why I chose Lightning Strike over Smite, which you can do, and the reason is the body armor we're using is a evasion base. And if we take a look at some of the Lightning Strike links, you could see that it's going to be 3 off colors, basically. So that's pretty easy to get. You could use one of those, white orb things or the omens or whatever. Or, you could just do something, right? It should be easy to get 3 off colors. But Smite links, on the other hand, are every single link is an off color. And so that's probably not going to work, right, on a evasion base. Now, you could use a hybrid base, like a evasion armor base. And you might be wondering, why are we not using an armor base? And basically, the thing is with Unbreakable, you can see Unbreakable here giving about 18% of our damage. In fact, this armor alone is giving us 50% more damage. You see, we take the armor off, we lose half of our damage. And that's just because of, I guess, yeah, Unbreakable works with Iron Reflexes. So you can see that this node here is actually giving us about 200k or 270k armor. So right, so the evasion gets scaled and then converted to armor, and then that gets doubled by Unbreakable. So a very OP thing Juggernaut can do, and that's why we are using a pure evasion base. Now, I think once you get some better, the new items, right, the new bases, you could probably get way more base evasion, and that's going to just like push your armor up quite a bit. And since we are actually running Divine Flesh, it does give a decent amount of, mitigation, and this will scale with our armor. So the more armor we get, the higher our max hit will be. Right, so you can see here, if we have about 3,000 or 3 million armor, our max hit goes up quite a bit from the 1 million. So that's going to be very nice. Scaling into endgame, as you get better gear, you're going to be increasing your armor, and then you're also going to be increasing your mitigation, which is going to be quite nice. DPS 30 million. This is very high because, I guess, because of the amount of armor we have, plus the gem changes. I think a lot of other armor stackers with this kind of gear would be at like 500, 600k armor. So Juggernaut, and the reason Juggernaut gets more is just Unbreakable. And like, say, ES builds are going to want to use ES bases, obviously, to get a lot of energy shield, so they're going to sort of be missing out on some armor, I think, unless they go for hybrid bases. But anyways, yeah, so playing a life-based Jug, you can take full advantage of like the new evasion bases. So that's very nice. And then our max hit, let's take a look at some of these numbers. Now, you might be wondering, well, what about Fourth Vow? What about stuff like Incandescent Heart? Is that going to be good? And I did check it out. So if you look at Fourth Vow, on paper it does look better. Right, you can see we went up to 180k max hit. One problem though is, so if we take off Molten Shell, you see our max hit is very, very low, 60k, right? And if we put on the normal armor, you can see we actually get more max hit with just this armor. So Fourth Vow, I think it is sort of like a bait, right? It seems like you are going to be getting more max hit, especially if you have Molten Shell turned on in your PoB. but in reality, it's not really the case, I think. And in general, probably not that good of an idea, because if you can see, we are also going to be losing half of our damage. So definitely, I think a rare armor is better. Even Incandescent Heart, not as good as just a regular armor. You also lose quite a lot of damage. I guess we're also losing one max res, so that could be the case, you know, and also you could get like 90 max chaos res, and then these other armors might start performing better, but you know, getting to 90 chaos res is not very easy. Probably have to get rid of some of these small clusters, and then you lose aura effect, and at the end of the day, you just lose damage, right? And I think just scaling this one little part here, Divine Flesh, and then getting 15% of armor applies is probably going to be enough for most things in the game. I think like, you know, end game, you'll get like to 200k, max it with Molten Shell up, and then you could even get suppression on top of that, maybe. But anyway, that's kind of, you know, a little ways away, or talking about the future. So let's get into the build. So that we went over the max hit life. You'll probably have a lot more life too because of the new life affix ranges. So that's something to look forward to. Probably, maybe you get 3k life. I don't know, maybe more, maybe less. And then life regen, very nice, like 2k life regen. Also, one bonus of Juggernaut is you also get Untiring, so you get the increased life regeneration rate. And you can also get stuff like this. And if you use, you know, you can get some more regen on gear, get a lot of regen. And as you get hit with physical damage, you get more and more regen, so that's going to be very nice. If you take a look at our mana, so there is sort of a problem in PoB right now. This build is also running Flesh and Stone, but the Flesh and Stone, you can see if we turn it on, it just it's scaling with aura effect, basically, so it's kind of bugged. But I have calculated enough mana. You should have enough mana to run Flesh and Stone as well. You might have to lower your precision to kind of make everything work, right? But Flesh and Stone is there, and I did put a custom config here so we can actually see what it's like if we did have the full 19% less damage taken. Let's talk a bit about the damage over here. So full DPS of like 68 million, and this is coming from the Lightning Strike projectile, and then the melee hit, and then the 2 Vol Lightning Strikes. It's over here like this. So like when you're not having your like Vol Lightning Strike up, you have like 45 mil, and then we're also in the config, I do have we have Vol Haste on, of course, right? I mean, why not? And we also have like Vol Smite, so like realistically like 25 mil ish DPS, which is quite nice actually. All right, so that's the DPS. Let's go into some of the items. Dream Feather, you do need 1 with Fortify on hit. I guess you could like swap out a support for Fortify, but that's not really ideal because you're getting rid of volatility probably, because you do need to get Pierce a little bit, right? Lightning Strike without Pierce is kind of bad. If you run the Transfigured one, then you also do need at least 1 Pierce, so you can get like return hits and that kind of stuff probably. But anyways, leave those links up to you. But you can also get Fortify on the tree, but you can see we just don't have points. You'd have to drop life and all that kind of stuff, so not really all that great. So better to just get it on the sword. And we have a Formless Flame, a +2 AoE. Like, these items are pretty good, I'd say. Like, it's not a League starter, guys. Like, you can't League start this. Maybe you could do a real stripped down version, but I wouldn't recommend it. Yeah, so the armor is basically you just want to get a lot of evasion. And then you want to get some regen, fire res, life. The gloves, too, you need to get your non-Vol skill strike 2 additional targets, or at least 1. You don't need 2, you just need at least 1. And that's the rest. And then, like, we're using a energy shield base. The reason is we need enough mana to cast our Grace Aura. See, it's costing 400 energy shield. Now, this is 400 in this PoB because we're also taking the Life Mastery, where skills cost life instead of mana. If you don't have this, it's like a bit more. But this will scale based on how much mana you have. So if you have like 2k mana, it's going to be costing quite a bit. So you don't really want to increase your maximum mana, you know, if you can. Because the blessing will scale off your, you know, maximum mana, right? Okay, so that's the gloves. So that's why I'm using the Sorcerer gloves. We have about, you know, maybe about 700 ES. You also do need ES to attack too. So I don't know. It's maybe you could min-max a bit more and use a hybrid base, who knows, but I'll leave that up to you. You don't necessarily need to use an energy shield base, and it's preferable, yeah, preferably you get a evasion base, but then you need energy shields like a hybrid base, right? All right, so that is the gloves, boots, same, Martial Legion boots. This time around, All's Uprising, I think, like, when you're on a budget, this is the amulet to use. Like, we can't even run haste aura on this build. You probably could, like, once you get more investment in, like, better small clusters and enlightens and this kind of stuff. But we can't run it, so All's Uprising is allowing us to actually fit all of our auras in. That's probably like the only reason we're running it. So get one of those. And after that, we have these rings are probably gonna be really annoying because like this build, especially because we're not running a Mage Blood, we can't take advantage of stuff like, you know, the 20 additional elemental resistances being up 100% of the time. So that's going to be annoying. And then you're also going to have to get a lot of decks because like these base, the armor is like almost 200 decks requirement to use. So you're gonna have to get decks everywhere. Like all of these small clusters have decks on them. So it's like pretty annoying to actually do, I think. Maybe you can get decks somewhere else. But yeah, it's going to be annoying getting decks and then the resistances. So probably, it's probably better to do this like once you have a Mage Blood. But I know for those of you who don't want to use the Mage Blood, this is actually like kind of some, you know, what you can do. It's kind of crazy. So rings are just stat sticks to cap resistance and dex pretty much. All right, so belts, there's like 2 belts I would use before Mage Blood, maybe 3 I guess, right? There's the Magnate, which is pretty nice because you can get 200 strength to get the double damage. I don't think it's worth trying to get 400 strength because these fire tattoos exist, right? You can get fire resistance and get a lot of armor and life regen, so probably realistic, stick around like, 200 strength. And then, so yeah, and also gives you increased flask charges gained, which is nice. Gives you elemental resistances, and it's very common to get, so you can get some nice corruptions on there. Tides of Time. This one's probably going to be better because it gives you flask effect, which is quite nice. So it gives you quite a bit more damage, or a little bit more, and then it gives you better flask uptime. So I'd say if you can get this, but this is probably going to be kind of expensive early on. And then I guess there is always String of Servitude, but it's going to be harder to cap your resistances. That's why I think Magnate is best, because it gives you quite a bit of resistance. Okay, flasks. Pretty much all the flasks we always use, except this time we're using a Ruby flask to actually get our 90 max res. You might not like this, and you could technically like get res here, and not rely on the flask, and then get another like jewel. We're using these small jewels here to get max res, so you could technically do that, but it's like so many points, right? And I wanted to spend the points on other things, so that's just how I've done it. You can see even without the flask, still do have a pretty respectable max hit. You could see without Molten Shell on 50k, so that's like pretty good, right? Okay, so that is sort of the gear. Go over the clusters real quick. So there's a couple of important clusters. We're getting our Life Leech from Feed to Fury, and then we also have Frenzy on Kill. It's like our only sorts of Frenzy charges, so it's kind of sad. So you're only going to have it while you're mapping or something, but it's still better than nothing, right? Let's just do the clusters first. So one here, Storm Drinker for ES Leech. I don't know how important this is going to be because your recharge rate is like 100, I think. Yeah, 100 recharge rate, and we're using 67 ES per second when Vol Haste is up. When Vol Haste is down, you actually use less, 49 or 50. So I guess by having Leech is going to be nice, because if when you cast your Grace Aura, you're going to lose like 500 ES, and then you're going to have to get it back. And if you want to cast it like 2 times or whatever, right, it's going to be kind of awkward. So getting some recovery is nice, and this also does give 8% Lightning Pen, which is pretty good, big for damage. Okay. Other one here, I think this one is, this one's just max mana. I had to get a little bit of max mana to help me fit in the auras nicely. But yeah, so that's where this one, the Scintillating Idea, is nice to use when you do need that little bit of extra reservation for stuff like precision and vitality. All right, so that is the clusters. All the small clusters are just introspections with like fire resistance, dex, and stuff like that. Okay, so then we have one Corrupted Blood jewel here. This one's actually very nice, but ideally only thing you need is the +1 fire res, or even just Corrupted Blood, because like even without this, if you didn't have this, you could take these points out here and then just run this and you have 90. So not even really that important at the end of the day, but if you can get it there, then that's nice to have. Watcher's Eye, I think the mod you want to get is the crit reduction, because that's the only thing we don't have in the build. And you know, 50% is more than enough, I think. And for secondary mods, Precision, Attack Speed, Lightning Penetration, Wrath are the best two damage mods probably. And then if you want to have more defense, then you get the life gain on hit, which is probably a good thing to do because, I mean, you have 2k life regen rate and then another 500 leech, but maybe you might want more depending on the content you're doing. Okay, so that's the Watcher's Eye. Let's go over the Timeless Joel because this is kind of interesting over here. So you need to get one with, it's a Glorious Vanity. You need Zip Aqua. And, well, the one I have is pretty insane. So 10% increased R effect, 10% increased R effect, 10% increased R effect, 30% R effect. Now, if you don't get aura effect on here, well, what's going to happen? So if you don't get aura effect, well, we just lost a lot of resistance. So what do you do if you don't have aura effect to get your resistances? Because I don't think everyone's going to be able to get that Timeless Joel because it's going to be kind of rare, right? So what you do is, well, first of all, just take that. Then you're at 89. And with the, I guess what you would have to do is you'd have to take this life out, put this here, and then grab this. Or what you do is you come up here, grab this, get another Joel. Right, and then you have your 90 max res. So basically, if you can't get any aura effect, then you can just get the max res from the Jewel and from this little node here. So it's not really that big of a deal at the end of the day, I think. There is also some other good nodes besides aura effect. You can get max chaos res on these, so that could be nice. So definitely look out for those. Okay, so let's talk about immunities. Immunities, this build gets immunity from all elemental ailments because they're doing purity of elements. We are also immune to bleed with the mastery down here. And then we take the poison Pantheon, which actually does work out really good with Divine Flesh because it has, you know, 5% reduced chaos damage taken. And since we're converting 50% of our elemental damage to chaos, that's actually really good. Okay, so that's nice. So we have, you know, you can't be poisoned if there are at least 3 poisons on you. And yeah, so its poisons are pretty much not a problem once you have this. And then we're using either, okay, so either use Arakali for dot mitigation because you can see hit mitigation pretty good, but degens are usually, you know, more annoying than hit damage. So you could do this, like Arakali for hit damage, or what you do is you run Lunaris because once you get hit, you get 6% additional elemental mitigation. So that's up to you. I like Arakali, it's just nice, right? Okay, so let's go over some of the skills we're using. We have an aura set up over here. Once again, make sure the purity of fire gets to level 23. It's going to be very important to get your being able to get your max res up to 90. Then we have some more auras here. Like I mentioned, we're not running haste, but we're just using Vol Haste as like a cooldown ability. It would be nice to fit haste in, but that's not going to happen unless you have like level 4 enlightens and like, you know, small clusters with 35% increased effect and that kind of stuff. But, you know, later on in the build's progression, you can actually get haste running permanently as an aura too, so that's quite nice. And then, like we mentioned, Flesh and Stone, I have it turned off because it's bugged in PoB, right? Wish that was true, but it probably isn't. Okay, so next we have just like some buffs, right? Like Molten Shell. Like realistically, you probably wouldn't even be using Seismic Cry. Like it's you know, not that great. I mean, it is good, but it's only gonna last 5 seconds, so you probably only use it on bosses. And then we are not actually using Berserk because honestly, Berserk is kind of a letdown, I think. I mean, 11% more damage. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, 11% more damage, but the thing is, it drains your rage really fast. 5 rage per second. We have 30 rage, so it's going to be gone like instantly. And since we only have one little node here for rage on hit, you could get more, right? Because we are near some of the rage on hit thing areas. I think it's, if you're only having this like the minimum, you know, like rage buildup kind of setup, then you're better off not running Berserk and just keeping the 30% more damage the full time. Alright, so one cool thing you can do that I learned from someone on Discord who told me, basically you can use Defiance Banner to get 100% spell suppression. So Defiance Banner gives you spell suppression per Valor, and I think by default it's like 50 Valor that you can get, right? So at a minimum, if you have 36 Valor and you use your Defiance Banner, well, you get 100% spell suppression. Also 100% increased movement speed. And you can see that just completely massively buffs your HP. So you can use this sort of like Molten Shell, right? Up to you which one you want to use, but you're gonna have to figure out a gem to drop. And then you can also use stuff like, let's just see, let's say War Banner, and say we have the max like 50. We have 50 Valor. When we have War Banner, it's going to give you a bit more damage because of the attack speed. So this is like pretty much just like your totem, right? It's like Ancestral Protector a little bit, right? Mini Ancestral Protector. So that's kind of cool, right? You can choose Spell Suppression, or you can choose War Banner for more attack speed, just to see if there's something else we can use. Dread Banner, okay, yeah, some block, right? You can get some block. Actually, cap your block. Wow. So yeah, banners, you could choose one to use. I don't know what you would possibly remove, as the gems are very tight. Maybe you would put you probably have to drop the War Cry, right? So probably have to drop Seismic Cry, which isn't even the end of the world because these are pretty nasty to use. Or I guess you could even just drop the Duration, right? So one of those, and you put in your Defiance Banner, you get your spell suppression. Right, so I don't, might be kind of weird and clunky to use, but it's something you can definitely, incorporate into your build to increase your defense. Okay, then we have our mark set up here. So mark on hit, sniper's mark if you're using a projectile skill, and then poacher's mark for like melee. Like, so if you run Smite, you'd put in poacher's mark, and this is going to allow you to get frenzies. It also gives life gain on hit, which is nice against like bosses and that kind of stuff. Okay, so the boot link is pretty much the same as like you always do, like the Smite, Grace, Inspiration, and Power. And then for Lightning Strike, we're using these links. Now, I am running Pierce and Return Projectiles. And ideally, you get a Nimbus. Some people don't like the random projectiles and that kind of stuff, but it's definitely worth it because, it's going to be just doubling your damage pretty much. So definitely get a Nimbus if you can. And that's kind of the setup. So for Smite, I guess, yeah, it's kind of... for Smite, I'd say run Smite of Divine Judgment, so you can take advantage of the Smite. Like, it's going to be like, what, level 31 Smite. Or you take advantage of that. Tons of like flat damage you get from that. It's going to make your Smite of Divine Judgment do a lot more damage. Okay, so that's the gems. We went over the gear, the gems, the tree. Yeah, I think that'll be it for this video, guys. Let me know if I missed anything. Like I said, this kind of I don't usually like to make build videos like this, because like most of the time I like to test the build out before I make the video, and help like kind of find things that you don't notice when you're just playing in PoB, right? So take this PoB with a grain of salt. But I think pretty sure like everything should work in this build. Technically, according to PoB, you can tank like all of the boss skill abilities, like Aziri's Flame Blast. We can do, let's see, we can take one hit from her Flame Blast, so that's kind of cool. And all the other abilities this build can tank, like the Maven Memory Game, we can take 1.7 Memory Game hits. So very cool indeed. Although I wouldn't really trust this because in-game, it's a little bit different sometimes. Alright, so that is the build, guys. Thanks for watching. I'm not really done with the Scion one yet, and I don't really know if I will be done until we have the new base types and all this kind of stuff. It's so I probably won't be making that right away, but I will be playing Scion, not as a league start, but probably will end up playing Scion as my main build in the next league. Alright, so that's going to be it for this one, guys. Thanks for watching. See you next time.